they never had a chance to know themselves because they've been mother for so long and they're like, who am I? And I was like, it's okay to figure out who that is now. I love that you want to know her.
Welcome to the Worthy Mother podcast, where we discuss all things identity, self-compassion, and fulfillment within and beyond motherhood. I'm Emily Rose Hardy, a mindset and self-love coach for moms. I am a firm believer that to be able to take care of our children, we must take care of ourselves first. This is not a parenting podcast. No, this is a podcast where we will challenge the societal expectations of what it means to be a mom, demystify the perfect mom myth, and learn to love ourselves. You are worthy, mama. Let's do this. Hello. Welcome to the Worthy Mother podcast. Today we are going to be looking at happiness and getting into really the key to leading a happy life, specifically, of course, through the lens of motherhood. Joining us is Holly Hughes, an intuitive healer and author of her book, Real Not Perfect: How to Become Your Happy, Authentic Self. Holly, welcome to the Worthy Mother podcast. So happy to have you here. Can you just quickly introduce yourself and tell us about what you do?
Sure. Thank you for having me. I'm excited. I've waited to talk to you, so I'm super excited about that. I am an intuitive healer, and it just really means that I love helping women, especially mothers, remember who they are, like who they are, so they can be the best mother, so they can teach their children this is what it is to be a whole person, to find their voice, passion, and self-worth, to teach them that the word no is just a boundary, right? You say it to your kid to protect them. No, don't put your hand on fire. No, don't lick the floor, right? Like we teach them these things. So it's okay to use it to protect yourself as well. And that, like, for me, like, I know you talk about self-care a lot, but the key for self-care for me is that it makes you lose time. So it recharges you. Like some people really love going to the gym. I'm proud of you for going to the gym. But like that doesn't make me lose time. I stare at the clock there, right? Like that's what I do because my body needs it. I dance to lose time. I write to lose time. These creative endeavors make me like not think about what I have to manage or produce or help anyone else with. It's just really about me.
I love that. And there's so many pieces just in the work that you do and kind of, learning about the work that you do that I'm like, yes, this is exactly it. It's about helping women like be themselves and be full and complete. And the impact that that has on our kids is huge. And it doesn't have to always be for our kids that we're doing this because we are so important as individuals. But then knowing when we are showing up in that fullness, our kids are seeing us. Like how beautiful.
Yeah, or how about when we're not full too? I want to give us mad
Yeah.
props for this. This is one
Yes.
thing I really did because I grew up really feeling that I was responsible for how my parents felt.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm not having a great day or I just wake up sad, that happens, I'm moody, right? I always tell my daughter, hey, I'm feeling like this today, but it's not your fault. And you can't really help me feel better. And I still love you. I'm just not having a great day. And that
Yeah.
makes every emotion valid. There's no
Yeah.
negative ones. It's a little harder. I can be like, you feel uncomfortable, but I'm not apologizing. Really important for what's going on with me. I am just acknowledging it and accepting it. Because I'm a big believer you have to feel it to heal it. Now,
Mm-hmm.
it does come back to haunt me now that my daughter is a teenager and she could take that back. But it's a skill. It's a
It
life
is.
skill. Mm-hmm.
Well, and it's part of being a full human, right? It's part of that is being able to feel our feelings. And when we can pass that on to our kids and like give that to them and they enter adulthood with that skill and with that ability to advocate for themselves and to say what they need. I mean, most of us did not grow
Mm.
up with that, right? Like that's not something that was taught to us in schools. There's a big push towards social emotional learning now, and a lot of parents are really stepping into that. But for most adults, most current adults, that's not the case. And so we had to learn it. And if we can send our kids off with those skills and with the ability to
understand what's going on in their mind and in their bodies. It's like, wow.
Yeah, I also think there's like another part to it too. You can understand it, but just because
Hmm.
you feel a specific way doesn't mean that it needs to impact everyone. I think that's a
Hmm.
little of my rub with some people lately. It's like, well,
Yeah.
I feel like this, and so everyone must kowtow, must understand that I am having this feeling. Okay, you have that feeling, and you know what's in your power? Manage it. You don't
Yeah.
have to like bleed your feelings on everyone. You don't have to just because you don't like a word, make no one else say the word. No, there is a balance. And I think the world has gone one way and then the other way. And I would love to find the place where you have self-worth and self-esteem that you know and can manage yourself. Just like when I tell my daughter, I'm having this mood, you
Hmm.
can't fix it. But I also then just don't sit like next to her and like make it like her experience it with me.
Yeah.
It's like that. Yeah.
It's like our own individual experiences can be our own, and we can learn to regulate, we can manage
Yeah.
and know that we each show up, and like allowing it really, like, I mean, what's coming up is allowing other people to be authentic in their experience as well.
Yeah. I love it. That's exactly it.
Love it. So can you kind of share for us, because I know a lot of the work you do is with like being your authentic self and showing
Mm.
up in that way. Can you explain for us the link between authenticity and happiness as you see it?
Oh, isn't that the $1 million question? All right. I think that being true to yourself takes courage.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's loneliness in it. And sometimes there's camaraderie in it. And there's excitement in it. But I have this thing that if you are not being you, if you are dumbing yourself down, if you are biting your tongue, if you're diminishing who you are just to be in with a group of people, that ultimately that leads to illness and you're probably recreating a trauma in your life, and that it's worth healing, and healing could be a challenging process. It's emotional, but no emotion will, you know, be too much for you to manage, right? And that you can get through it. And, there are some people I see who have depression, and I am not a doctor. So, like, I really prefer that they see someone to manage the depression
Hmm.
part of it. But, like, my gifts are that I can see, hear, and feel things that other people can't. I'm really doing my best not to read you right now, but because it just kind of starts to happen when I have these amazing conversations. But I think that when you know who you are and you like yourself,
Yeah.
that you won't settle for less just to be part of something. And another skill too is like, I would like to offer this to women, especially because men used to do this. I don't know about young men anymore, but men can be friends with, this is my baseball friend. This is my hockey friend. This is my bird watching friend. This is like the guy I talk about how to mow my lawn with. And they're not looking for this intimate, deep connection with everybody. It's okay for women to learn, like, oh, these are my friends that, I exercise with, and we are like, cheering each other on. Do we have much else in common? No, but it's good to see them. These are some of my mom friends, and we have similar beliefs. But especially when your child is young and you're there during the play dates, I'm sure we've all met people that were like, oh my God, when can I get out of this house or leave the park or something, right? But it's okay that you just give it a specific time and don't expect more out of it. And I think that also leads to happiness.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I'm just thinking about how we all have the need to belong. And that's such a important piece of the human experience and of like what we really truly need in our lives is connection and to feel seen by other people. But how that can often feel like, especially because of all the messages we get about how we're supposed to show up and,
Mm.
everything like that, it can feel like we have to force ourselves into a box to belong. And
Mm.
that
Ooh,
isn't
did you see the shivers up
necessarily.
my body? I'm like, oof. I like to say I smash the box and dance on
Uh-huh.
top of it because I don't like being in a box.
Yeah.
That can be challenging too. Like there are times where I'm like, gosh, I would love to have a closer friend close.
Yeah.
But but it doesn't always happen. And the other interesting thing is that I think after COVID, post-COVID war, where we're more on our phones, there really isn't a connection there. Like
Yeah.
when these companies are asking people to go back to the office and they're like, no, I don't want to, but maybe you should. I mean, just like think about it, just being able to be around people again and redevelop people skills, maybe we'll have less hateful things on the internet, less reactionary people because we've lost tolerance for our foibles. Now, a jerk, can I say bad words on your show?
Go ahead. Go
Okay,
right
so
ahead.
an asshole is an asshole. We know we can spot one, right? Like, they're there.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that, I'm like an introvert. So I realized in the past year, I was like, oh, I think my introvert won. Like, girlfriend needs
Hmm.
to get out of the house a little bit more. I need to physically leave. It's
Yeah.
really important. And even like, I think for moms, that is super important too, because if your world becomes so small, like physically
Hmm.
small, it feels like pressure.
It does. And it's hard to exist as yourself, like as you, when you're so limited in what you are able to do and experience. And I think it can be hard sometimes to get out of the house, to go meet the gym
Hmm.
friends or do whatever the things are. And so like knowing that we have to be intentional about that so that we can like experience all the parts of life and all of the ways that we show up as ourselves, because showing up
Yeah.
and making breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the kids and, doing all of that and being the caretaker and yes, having fun too, right?
Hmm.
But it's such a narrow scope of who we are and what we do. And I think that there's a lot in there that's really important to consider. And I love just thinking about how we can have different relationships with different people and they can
Hmm.
be differently beneficial to us.
For sure. Or like, look outside of what you usually do. Like,
Hmm.
I love like sometimes when I'm working with people for a while, I'm just like, so what was your favorite thing that you did as a kid? Right?
Yeah.
Moms nowadays you're over scheduling your children. Like, stop. They can be bored. They can because then they can, figure something out. I mean, my philosophy was it's my job to expose my kids to as much as I
Hmm.
could. And like each person that could be different. Like things are crazy expensive. Sports around me are insanely competitive. And if you just want to do something because you like doing it and you don't want to compete at a high level, that's really hard to find. And so if you
Yeah.
struggle with that, I feel you like a lot. And it's their job to figure out what calls to them and like what they love. And it can we also not pigeonhole kids if your kid has a proclivity for soccer at 3 that maybe by 6 they want to sew and it's okay. Right? Like give them space. Like give them grace like you should be giving yourself
Hmm.
grace. Super interesting to watch kind of what's happening that way.
It really is. And I want to just like call out the like societal factors in that too, of like, it's hard to make decisions and it's hard to show up and not even know what the best choice is for our kids, because that's not necessarily what we're aiming for. Like they might
Hmm.
do soccer and end up hating it and they finish out the season and that's fine, right? It's not about getting it right. But there are so many options of how we can handle things. And we're also trying to figure out what's best for us and like what we want to fit into our schedule as
Hmm.
individuals, and just the kind of dance that we have to do. And knowing that you could try and fit more things in the schedule and then back off or say, you know what, we're not doing anything this season. And that might be hard for your kids too, right? It might be hard to be like, wait, so I have to figure out what to do with my time. And navigating that as a parent might be challenging, because when our
Uh-huh.
kids are used to not being bored, right? They're used to being
Hmm.
stimulated. And that's kind of the way the world works. There's a lot going on, a lot of stimulation, a lot of like, go, go, go. That's kind of the way that our kids are being brought up, the world our kids are being brought up in. And so knowing that it might be an adjustment for everybody,
Yeah. It's okay
but
to be uncomfortable.
it's totally okay to be uncomfortable, and teaching our kids that, letting them know, like, yes, this
Hmm.
is uncomfortable.
Yeah, and unscheduling also means, not like all day on the TV. I also want to like talk about like motherhood is many phases and many decades, and you're not going to do it the same every
Mhm.
year. Your children develop at a certain pace. You are also getting older. And here's like the other really big one I like to remind people of is to ask for help.
Mhm.
Right? Like, so Tuesday night is dance night for me. I go to my dance class every Tuesday night, and it is a schlep away. It's like 45 minutes for at least for me to get there because I usually
Yeah.
hit traffic. The class is about an hour and a half, and then I have 45 minutes home. It's a big commitment. I mean, I really have to go. When I don't go, I get depressed. When I don't go, my family sees that my energy and my joy and my happiness are not there. And so that's when my husband, so if you're married, it might be different, or not married, but that's when they're like, no, go because you're
Yeah.
better when you come
Please.
back.
Yeah.
Please
Please
go.
go.
Go, go, go. So, I used to exercise like when my daughter was younger during the day because I would put her in a daycare for a little bit of time
Mhm.
and then I had some space to do it and then I came back. I also have always lived places where I don't have family. I've never had anyone babysit for a weekend. So for
No,
me,
yeah.
I understand when people can't have it. And then other people are like, oh, I go away monthly with my husband. And I'm like, yeah, that's amazing and beautiful. And I'm glad for you. But the world is so expensive now.
It
You
is.
don't have to go into debt to entertain your kids. And what's like that boredom is the mother of invention, right? Like they have to have a moment to figure things out. Or, because I'm Gen X, I think we literally played in the woods. We really did. Sticks and rocks. It's all good. And I know the world makes you afraid to do that nowadays. I know they say it's really dangerous out there, but there's spaces that are okay. You just know it. So, like, don't let the fear. And also, oh my God, social media is such a lie.
It
Like,
is. It's yeah.
let's take that woman who's like going to jail and she was like a mom influencer or whatever. It's just not that way.
Yeah. We have to be really careful about managing our own expectations of ourselves based on what we are seeing and what we're
Mm-hmm.
believing is the truth. I mean, that's a great example of like, yeah, sometimes it's just like tweaks of the truth, right? That we're
Mm-hmm.
seeing. And that can be really damaging to see like that. But then there's whole worlds on social media that are just a lie. And we are taking it in unconsciously as the way it should
Yeah.
be.
Exactly. Exactly. It's hard because, I like those filters. I like looking at myself that way. I was like, oh, I mean, some of them are creepy and they're just hysterical to me, but I'm okay with having fun, but like not to take it seriously. Your happiness, we're meant to age, we're meant to change. The
Yeah.
other one of my other favorite things I love speaking to like moms about is this. It's like your kids don't like playing with the same toys from 2 to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to 16, right? They have huge moments of growth. So can you, right? If you're having children in your 20s, I think women don't really even begin to start to know who they are until they're in their 30s. And that's because most of us are recreating what we know. We're recreating the family
Hmm.
either that we wanted. You're picking partners similar to your family, even if you swore on your life you never would. I am telling you, in my 10 years of doing this, you do it. I'm just telling you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you have to choose, oh wait, what works for me? What doesn't work for me? What have I always just like not said that I put
Yeah.
up with? What do I really want? What does it mean now that my kids are in school and I have more time? What's my priority? Do I want to stay at home? Do I want to do something? Do I need to make money? There's like so many different kinds of layers of questions. And that's a lot of pressure for moms.
Yeah.
Because now I have to
It's a
like
lot of
keep up
work.
all that. Yeah, that. I
It
just
comes
want to.
back to kind of the discomfort again of like
Mm-hmm.
the things that you're comfortable with. The comfortable choice isn't always going to be the most authentic to you as an individual, but we're going to default to what's comfortable. And
Yep.
knowing that is really important because then we can like intentionally not default, right? We can intentionally make the choice to like explore something different that might feel better for us, right? Showing up in the world in a different way, doing a different hobby, like whatever it is, there's a lot of options out there that might not be the comfortable option.
Right. One of my favorite questions is that I like to ask for. I'm like, so remember, like, what was a hobby you did as a kid that you haven't
Yeah.
done in a long time? Like when I'm feeling really sad, if I'm in one of my moods, I put pigtails in. There's
Love
no
it.
way to be in a bad mood with either two braids or two pigtails, right? Like there's just no way because your hair swings, depending on how long it is, or they stick out. It's just cute. You can't get past that,
Yeah.
right? But a lot of people stop trying new things.
Yeah.
Again, during the lockdown, how many people made sourdough? I'm like, anyone listening to this in the comments, I want you to tell me if you made sourdough or baked bread and you never did it before, but you did new things because you're like, oh my God, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Everyone started cooking lard. I've learned so many recipes, it annoys me. Like, I don't want to know how to cook that much. But I also went to like Michael's craft store and I bought a $4 crochet kit. And no one in my family thought I'd be able to do it, but I made a jellyfish.
Love it.
And then I made another one, and then I bought a lamb, but the lamb is still in the kit because that was pretty complicated. But it didn't take that long, and it was like can I do this? It's okay to fail.
Yeah. It's okay to try the thing. It's
Mm.
okay to try the thing and be like, that wasn't that fun. I'm not
Or
going to do
how
that
about
again.
don't we tell our kids this? You're not going to be perfect the first time, right? Like I hate that word perfect, right? So that's why I'm always like real not perfect when you try a new sport. Do you know how to do it all? Are you going to be the best one? No, you have to keep going. And
Mhm.
as adults, we don't give ourselves the grace for that.
Yeah.
Have you ever
I
been
feel
a parent before? Is that your first kid? Oh yeah, you better get it right on the first time with everything. Come on, everyone's baby rolls off the bed at some point or bangs, and you're like, oh, like what? How did that happen? I don't know. Right? There's going to be moments where, despite your best efforts, it's not going to go exactly the way you want.
Yeah. Well, and knowing that it's also not just the more you practice, the more perfect you're going to get because really you might really enjoy going and playing basketball and you're probably never going to be the best basketball player. That
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to be the goal. And whatever the little thing is, being a parent, like you're going to continuously be growing and learning and your kids are going to be changing and your needs are going to be changing and yes, things might get easier in some ways and you might get
Mm-hmm.
better at certain parts of it, but then there's going to be other challenges and real, not perfect, right? It's like, it's not
Right.
even that we're starting in this not perfect place to get to perfection. That's just not realistic. We're not going to be the best. We're not going to be the most on it and never making mistakes because we're human. And I mean, that's just not how it works.
It isn't how it's like again, so I still go to dance class. By the way, it's an
Yeah.
African dance class. And so like I've been doing it like for 20 years and I love it. I don't know why I do. I do. I have a community of people that since I've lived here, I've been dancing with them for like 8 years. I
Yeah.
just love it. I get in bad mood, the drums start. I love it. Now, does anyone, when I walk in, is anyone paying attention to me? No. Does anyone expect me to be the good one in the class? No. And I
Yeah.
always want to do my best. And also now I'm aging. So you think you're bending and you're like, oh, I'm upright. Like there's ego involved in that too, but it brings me joy. So,
Yeah.
what can you do that brings you that joy? Joy's not complicated. Like I like to find awe in things. Like there's a tree that started growing in my backyard and it's a pine tree. And as a sapling, one of its limbs was in a swirl. I was like, I don't even know how this is happening. And like for weeks, I would just go take pictures I'm like, this is weird. And I love weird. So I was like, I'm down with that. Or an amazing bluebird came by, or a stork. There's stork near me.
What?
And I'm like, I'm in North Carolina, not near the ocean, right? I'm in Charlotte. What is this water bird doing here? You can
Yeah.
have a small moment of joy. Or I like recently uploaded a video of me walking my dog because my dog, like, he looks like he's skipping when he walks. And it's just because he's so damn happy. And I was like, I hope that brings you a moment of happiness because motherhood is exhausting. It's so
It is.
exhausting, especially when your kids are little and they leak and you have to wipe and do, and you're responsible for everything. I think one of my own struggles when I was a younger mother was I felt so erased
Hmm.
because everything you were before is different now.
It's all different.
But I'm like, this is the reminder that self-care reminds you of the parts of you still want to be.
Yeah. I think that is a really important part of the conversation. And it's something I never want to like skim over when we have conversations about like identity in motherhood and being ourselves. And a huge part of that is knowing that there is a lot that comes with the role and there's a lot of responsibility. There's times like there might be times and periods. I always relate it back to newborns because it's really easy to like be like, oh, yes, that is a time where like everything has to do with the baby. Like it's
Mhm.
literally survival mode. And yes, usually for most moms, we move out of that phase fairly quickly and kind of get a little bit more of our autonomy back. Of course, there's factors that can contribute to greater challenges with that, but knowing that it does change our lives so massively, like so it's like an overhaul of our lives. And so it's not just getting back to like who we were. That's not
Mhm.
really the point. And I think it can be really challenging to like understand that and understand that, like, yes, you might be exhausted. And so finding ways to ask for help, finding ways to have the time for yourself to tap into these things, but knowing that it also might be challenging and that's valid.
For sure. I had a client who was a new father. I had a couple
Hmm.
and they were like lost, not knowing what to do to help. I
Yeah.
was like, do you wash a bottle? Have you done a load of laundry? Have you just like lightened the load?
Yeah.
If you lighten the load, it's foreplay. Like, especially when the baby is so tiny, right?
Yeah.
You're like wondering why someone who cannot move yet or say anything is like all consuming and like you're just like, oh my God, I love you, but oh my God, this 3 hour
Yeah.
schedule is killing me. Right. So, I also like to tell new parents that she will hate you for at least 6 to 12 weeks. And it's just exhaustion and hormones and needing help. And you can't, if you're breastfeeding, he can't step in on that one.
Yeah.
Right. If you're bottle feeding, he can. Like my husband and I back in the day, he would take the midnight feeding. So I could sleep from like 10 till 2. And I was like, 4 hours. Woo woo.
Yeah. You were
It
feeling
was
like a new person.
totally. But like that works. But like, you have to speak up. And if you don't know what works, it's okay to say that too. It's okay to say, I'm feeling lost.
Yeah.
Can you like give me a suggestion? If the suggestion really makes you angry, then it's probably not the right one. Or maybe the one that's making you so angry actually is a good one. You just haven't thought of it and you're annoyed at yourself. I don't know. That happens too. We have to give ourselves grace. We just don't.
Yeah. I mean, I think self-compassion is at the heart of so much of our
Mm.
experiences and really like being able to say, okay, I don't know everything
For
and
sure. I
that's
think also
okay.
motherhood nowadays is interesting because many people aren't having children young. We're having them a little older,
Hmm.
right? And so that means like I like to use myself as an example. Listeners, if that annoys you, I apologize, but I don't like to call out people that I know. But like I waited a long time. I waited until I thought my marriage was stable. I
Yeah.
waited and I wanted us to know each other like in a marriage before I inserted another person because if you're thinking about having a baby and you think it's going to make you closer, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
It's a huge stressor in your life in the best possible way, but not at first. It's just all new and it's confusing.
Yeah.
Um and then I waited to have my child and so like that was the path I took. I know people who are neighbors of mine who had 3 before they're 30. I was like, oh my God, I was still going out a lot then. Like I was doing something completely different. And in my practice, I see those women when they're 40 because they never had a chance to know themselves because they've been mother for so long and they're
Hmm.
like, who am I? And I was like, it's okay to figure out who that is now. I love that you want to know her. It's okay to miss who you were. It's okay to wonder, what if I did it different? Those are all normal things. When you dwell in it and you don't push through it or heal it, that's where it creates the problems.
Yeah, absolutely. I had my first son when I was 23. So I was a young,
Mm.
unexpected young mom, younger end. I mean, there's obviously moms who are younger, but that is something that is so like present for me is knowing that, like, first of all, my own journey is going to be a journey. I'm always going to be learning about myself and I'm always going to be discovering new parts of myself. And so knowing that and knowing that, yes, there's going to be times where it's a lot and like spending my 20s with
Mm-hmm.
babies, it's maybe different than I would have expected, but knowing there's things I can do to make sure that I am tapping into myself. But I think that's an important point. Like, no matter when you are kind of tapping into yourself, when you're learning about yourself, it's an ever growing process, right? We're
Mm-hmm.
always going to be able to discover new things about ourselves. And there's no shame in when that starts for you because
Mm.
it can continue on forever.
Yeah,
Like,
I
it's
mean, we're
beautiful.
you don't want your life to like, oh, I did it all. I'm 30. Like,
Uh-huh.
no, it doesn't work that way. And besides, life and the world will hand you things. Like I like to say, you
Yeah.
don't need drama in your personal relationships because the world will give you the
He'll give
drama,
it to you.
right? The world will hand you COVID, job, career,
Hmm.
life, family dynamics, blah, 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 blah. That life will just give you all sorts of things. But like, you know, knowing how you want to mother or know yourself or learn and grow, I call them chapters. I had my daughter when I was 39,
Yeah.
right?
Totally different
So
experience.
totally different experience. I really actually enjoyed my pregnancy. But the when we moved from California to North Carolina, most people have children much younger. And so when I walk into spaces and I was older, I was like, wow, like all my friends were having babies later,
Yeah.
right? So it was a super interesting experience. And it just like people are like, oh, at least I'll be young when my kids are whatever. I'm like, thanks, thanks for that. But like why you dissing on another mom? That's my whole thing, right? It's okay to do whatever. And it's okay to have those moments in time where you're like, what I'm doing isn't working.
Yeah.
You
Totally.
have right, you have the capacity to change it then.
Absolutely. So I want to kind of bring this to a place that's a little more concrete, thinking about the challenges that moms have sometimes when it comes to like showing up authentically and really like embracing who they are in lives. What do you see as like the factors to why that can be so challenging?
I think they are so used to helping others,
Uh-huh.
like the to-do list that self is last.
Yeah.
I'll get to it after I make dinner or after I'm done with the laundry and after I drop the kid off or after I pick up the kid and after the nap and after and after. So you become an afterthought. And that's really the hardest thing. And the other thing about being authentic, it's a big word. Like it takes up your whole mouth.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of letters.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe authentic could be wearing your favorite socks. Like, what if that just brings you joy, right? Men do that all the time, like normal suits and snazzy socks. That seems to be a thing. Like, and I know I'm super oversimplifying it, but sometimes it starts small because you're so busy taking care of everyone else.
Hmm.
So, the word no, right? That's a big one. We started with that. We can end with that. Self-care. I think it was like for me, one time self-care was like wearing a dress and my boobs look good,
Yeah.
right? Because after babies, ladies, come on now. We know, right? Your body shifts, it changes. So it could be just like that. Or how about when you go food shopping, you buy the thing that you want to eat
Hmm.
and then don't share it.
Love
That's
it.
so tough. I got to put my name on stuff in the fridge now. I'm like, it's like I'm in like back in the college dorms. I was like, did you eat my leftovers? They're like, yeah, they're leftover. I was like, "This is my leftover. Yeah. So something
Yeah.
like
No.
it could be that simple. I think if you were lost and you forgot who you are, saying be authentic is like, I don't even know where to start.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's like you said, not to oversimplify it, like, but it is almost like something that we do have to oversimplify in a sense
Hmm.
because it can feel so like, what does that mean? Like, how do I show up as me? Because I think too, we get so just in life. And again, it's like all the messages that we grow up with about like trying to be perfect and trying to fit in this
Hmm.
box, whatever it is, even if you're actively now pushing against that and saying, no, I'm going to be me. Sometimes it's hard to like parse out what is me and what is something that I've just learned along the way. And I don't know that there's always
Mm,
a distinction between the two, right? Like we are in some ways a product of our lives. And
for
so
sure.
I think kind of looking at it from the simplicity of like, sometimes it's just wearing what you want to wear, feeling good about it. And
Yeah.
all those things can be huge in being yourself and feeling like yourself. I mean, I will say I relate so much to what you said, going to a Christmas party this past holiday season and being like, I want something that makes my boobs look good. Like I'm ready to like just feel good about myself, right?
Mhm.
And for me, that's not always the easiest thing. My body's changed a lot, and like I've accepted that that might be like a next thing I'm working on is understanding and accepting my body. But like I want to feel good. So I found a cute little holiday sweater that was like a low cut one and got a new
Yes.
bra. And like I feel good.
No, that's
So
one of
I
my
just
quotes. That's one of my quotes. One of my Holly healing tip is life's too short to wear uncomfortable bras or be in uncomfortable relationships. I think another way, especially if you are in the thick of young parenthood, meaning that
yeah.
you're like with children, not in any preschool or kindergarten yet, is that if something is causing you anxiety, if something is making your mind spin endlessly or you're worried all the time,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tell you that is a space for you to explore so you're not happy,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's something that's not aligned, so you're not being yourself, right? That's just a super indicator, right? So, like clairvoyant, all my woo-woo things, guided messages are full of love. When it's not full of love, it's then not to first listen to it, right? Like it's anxiety and it's not telling you the truth about yourself. Another thing that I do, I have a jar on my desk and it's full of colored post-its, brightly colored post-its, because I have a thing for those. And I challenge anyone listening once a week, write a compliment about yourself and stick it in this jar. I've been going for like a year and a half now. I haven't even read them yet. And like I had a really hard, like I get seasonally blue, like winter makes
Mm-hmm.
me kind of sad. So I was like, you got up and, you did what you said you would today. That could be a compliment. I like how cute and curly my hair is today. That could be a compliment. There's no right or wrong. It could be like my toes look cute. I don't care. It could be I wrote a book, I finished my book. It could be as big or as small. But when you start praising yourself in those small ways, you'll be like, oh, that felt good. And it might feel
Yeah.
super awkward too, by the way. I'm not going to tell you that. It's going to be like, oh, I could do that. And I could feel a bunch of people already being like, I'm not going to do that. Go ahead. Now I double dog dare you. I double dog
Yeah.
dare you to do it. And if you don't want to put it in a jar because a kid can grab it and smash it, and then that's a hazard, get a little notebook, get a scrap of paper and just like doodle, like do that. And so you'll be like, how about, you took care of the kids today. You did it despite being tired or
Mm-hmm.
despite being sick or despite them being sick, right? That
Yeah.
you did it. You didn't quit. That's huge.
Having gratitude for ourselves and for like I think sometimes when we're struggling, when we are having a hard time, that's when it's the easiest to criticize ourselves and have that negative self-talk of like, oh my God, I'm doing a horrible job showing up, or like what's wrong with me that I'm not enjoying making the peanut butter sandwich for lunch. Like we feel like we have to be loving every
Mhm.
moment of motherhood and of life. And when we're struggling, it's like there's something wrong with me. And I really think it's when we're struggling that we can like tap into that self-gratitude the most, because if you're still showing up maybe differently than you want, right? Maybe we're not showing up as this idealized version of ourselves that we have in our mind, but we're showing up and you made the peanut butter sandwich. And the what's the word I'm looking for? Just
I think you're being a
there's
demonstration. Like we talked before, you're being
yeah,
a demonstration to your children, not to
yeah,
be perfect, ups and downs, and you can push through some days and other days you can't.
yeah.
It's okay if the floor doesn't get picked up if it's just too much for you that
Yeah,
day.
it's okay. The expectations don't like we are allowed to, first of all, determine our own expectations for ourselves. We don't have to hold ourselves to some societal standard expectation. And again, that can be hard because we take it in and think it's our own expectation. But we can decide for ourselves, like, you know what? I'm not going to pick the floor up every day. The expectation is not going to be that. Maybe once a week the house is going to look
Mhm.
tidy and we can start over on Sunday and then kids trash it. Like whatever it is, it doesn't, whatever's best for you. That may not work for everyone, but you get to set the expectation. And then, yeah, it's like that expectation can also be fluid. You don't have to always hold yourself to this high standard, if that's just not where you're at, if that's actually causing more pressure and more stress, then like who says, right?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, these conversations are so important because we do, I mean, just as humans, we get in this kind of like the way that we're doing things, the way that we're doing things, the way that we think we should be doing things, the way that we're supposed to be. And whatever it is, it can feel like a lot, especially when we are struggling. And when we can stop and think, okay, what agency do I have in this? And where do I want to change my expectations? Where do I want to show up differently? That's okay. But we have to
Mhm.
bring the awareness there.
Right. That's authenticity.
Yeah.
This works for me. This doesn't. And sometimes you have to be brave because you might get judged.
Yeah.
It hurt. That
Yeah.
judgment is hard. Like, I don't want to downplay that. It can be hard.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it feels so much better just being you, just
Yeah.
being real, just without the extra effort it takes to please to get along.
Yeah. It's so important. So, one thing that I love to do at the end of these episodes is really like dig in explicitly to self care. You know, we've talked about it a lot. We've
Mhm.
talked about how important it is to be putting ourselves on that to do list, right? We want to be making sure that like taking care of ourselves is a very real priority because it's important. It is
Yeah.
important to be pouring into ourselves for so many reasons, not just so we can show up for our kids, but obviously that is important, right? So I would love to hear from you. I know you've shared some things that you do, going to dance class and things like that,
Mhm.
but how do you take care of yourself? And is there any like small tips for moms to make sure that they are caring for themselves regularly?
Yeah, that is like, I really, for me, it's my dance class,
Yeah.
because I have community and I'm not responsible for anything there. So I think if you can find something that makes you happy, pottery, a coloring book, I don't know, a cup of noodles alone. Like, I don't want you to be alone. Like, I think it's
Yeah.
even better if you can find community, or maybe if you are around a lot of community, you need alone. So I think that's kind of hard to say. But for me, it is both things, right? Because I said I was an introvert. So I'm what they call an expressive introvert. So I have a lot of energy, and then like I won't talk for the rest of the day because I'm like, I'm done. I'm going to read a book. So like for me, I found not a book club because I found those rather daunting. People like to argue, and I don't want to argue. I just want to read. So I found places where people were reading things that I found interesting. I love learning. So like I tend to read historical fiction. I watch only foreign programming. I'm like obsessed with K-dramas, which is Korean shows and K-pop. And see, it made me giggle because it makes me
Yeah.
happy. So that's what I'm saying. So I just kept going until I found something like that. And so sometimes it's retreating into the quiet of another culture, another story, another world. And other times it's sweating and jumping and being giddy to be around things. Both of them feed my soul, but it still comes down to I lose time. I'm not thinking about what's waiting for me when I leave wherever I am. I'm not worried that I didn't finish something before I left. So for me, that's why I always say self care helps you lose time because it's really just about you and really being present.
I love that. And I love thinking about how there's kind of the different like needs that we tap into. And, you know, having the community is really important. And if that's not something that you're getting just in living life, then being really intentional to make sure that you're finding the ways and the time to have that really purposeful community for whatever you need. But then also knowing that like we also need the time to escape to ourselves and sometimes to escape to
Everything.
the K drama, right? Like there's a lot of
Oh, yeah.
if kind of like watching Netflix, you know, is really what you need right now and you need to kind of just escape into another world or you're going to read and you're going to like just forget about
Hmm.
everything in your life and escape into this book. Like there's different things we need at different times and so being able to kind of tap into all those different parts of us
It doesn't have to
matters.
cost money. Like I like
Yeah.
to say that too, because I think that's a big concern for a lot of people.
Mhm.
Libraries, I mean, there's
Yeah.
libraries or even going outside. Like, so I have a thing about when I go on a walk, I know a lot of people like to listen to music, but I dare you not to be plugged in. I dare you, like, again, I keep daring people on this one. I'm going to suggest that you try not to be plugged into an electronic device. Oh, and
Yeah.
my favorite self-care tip, this also annoys so many people. Leave it in the comments. Let us know. I don't want you to plug your phone in by the bed. I want you to go get an alarm clock. I know Target has $3 alarm clocks, $10, like whatever. I want you, no, I know you're arguing with me. Get the sound machine, your kid. No, I want that. They made it addictive. So I want, when you first wake up for you, I want you to have your coffee and not look at social media and watch how different you feel. First of all, your anxiety is going to go bonkers. And then you'll be like, this is so much better once you
Yeah.
get past the discomfort, but no phone next to the bed. And I dare you to, again, why do I keep saying that? I never use that word. There's something about the word dare in your cute face. So it's unplug an hour before you go to bed. Unplug from your phone, no social media, no emails, no cute pictures, none of that for an hour, not near your bed. Like put it in the kitchen. Ooh, feel that one. And then see how different you feel. And you're going to wake up with less anxiety, less pressure. You'll
It
get
really,
that
yeah.
moment.
It is funny because you're saying that. I'm like, but what if someone needs to get a hold of me? And I think so I'm 29 and have had my phone has been my alarm since I was in high school. Like it is kind of funny to think about just the way that like technology works these days is that like we depend on it for very real normal things, right? Like we don't have landlines. Knowing if someone needs to get a hold of you, they're calling your cell phone. And I love that challenge of like, yeah, but you can actually solve the problem and put the phone away because we all know that that's better for us.
It is. And like, you put people through to voicemail. You're leaving.
I'm not answering my phone in the middle of the night.
No, your teenager is not out driving. You have little ones still. It's okay.
Yeah.
I just try it once and you'll see how anxious you are.
Yeah.
There's no phones in the bedrooms, period, full stop. They all are in the kitchen at night. And we all have to unplug at least an hour before. You feel good. Now, do you walk by every now and again? I'm not going to lie and tell you I'm perfect, ha ha ha, because I don't believe in that. But you'll check, especially if you're like something's coming up. But it feels so good not to have it.
Like that's not just the norm. That's not just the default is scrolling.
Correct. Or, that the feeling, even if it's on silent and it makes that noise, you still hear it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, I feel it. I feel like you're speaking right to me.
Good.
Holly, this has been such a just light of a conversation. Thank you so much for being here. Can you leave us with where we can find you?
Absolutely. I am hollyhughesintuitive.com on the internet and everywhere. So on Instagram, Holly Hughes Intuitive, YouTube, Holly Hughes Intuitive. And if you like K-dramas too, you can find me on TikTok talking about K-dramas and Holly Hughes Intuitive.
Love it. Thank you so much. And we will have all of that linked in the show notes. And for everybody listening, you are worthy, Mama.